pull the lasts. We're going to show you two different ways of pulling the lasts. It don't hurt to know 100 different ways, because sometimes you need all of them. One method is to drill a hole in your last right here, somewhere in this area right here, so that you've got a pull hole to work with. If you're working with the split crown ones, you also have to have a hole. I mean, the split cone ones, you have to have a hole here as well, so that you can reach in and pull the cone out first and then pull this. But be aware that you will want to drill holes in the back of your last here, just behind the spindle, just behind here, somewhere in the meat of it, so you won't yank the hole out. Then you make yourself a Jim Dandy tool, something like this. I'll put it over here so you can get an idea of the end of it. It's just a piece of 1/4-inch rod that I've heated and bent with a loop on this end and a hook on this end, where you can go down inside the boot and fit it in the hole like this. So after you've broken the boot, you've got something to pull with. I've made two of them. This one I made a little longer because the boots have grown considerably height-wise. The first one I made was about this long, and then I tied a nylon lace to it and got height that way. Anyway, this is one method we'll show you how to pull on. The other method is simply to have a pin like this at enough of an angle to where when you break the boot can break away this way to pull on this way. This is the way most factories are done, with a pin on this angle here. I put it on the side of my clicker because, again, like I said, this clicker weighs about approximately a ton, and I'm not going to turn it over. You have to have it on something stout, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. The clicker has holes in the side of it, and we just made this to fit notch into it like this, and then we can pull all we want on it, like so. I'll do this one first. Put your boot over it and get your spindle in place again. Then you're going to break the boot. You're going to take and push the toe down, like so. Now we pop that heel up. Get a bar and I'll show you here.
These are elastic.
Okay. This is what we've done, just like that. And then grab a hold of the heel and pull on it. There you go. You can get an idea of the angle right there. They all don't come out that easy. At this time, I usually go in and check for nails and whatever else I may find gently. Usually you're going to have some pegs sticking up that you have to sand down. And on this method, you'll break your boot just like the other way. Take your rod and go inside your boot. Place the angle in the hole. Then you place something in the other hole of the rod that you've placed on the end of it. Put it between your feet and reach back and push out with your feet. Like that. There you go. I don't know. One's as good as another, I guess. The trouble being with this method is inevitably you're going to last a pair of boots and forget to drill the holes in the lasts here. And you're going to get to this point and say, oh shit, I forgot. It's nice to have this other method. I pull almost all of mine on the pin now. I save this method for one that is terribly difficult to get out. You've got a great deal more strength in your legs than you do in your arms. So it works well if you end up with a boot that the last is just so stubborn it won't come out. So you can go back to the leg method and pull them that way. From here we'll go over and shape our tops. At this time I will take and wet these tops again. If you're working with light leather and you're a little bit afraid of water staining down here because you're not going to wet the bottom, take some shoe stretch and wet the tops with shoe stretch. And then we're going to tree the tops out. So I'll wet these down and we'll go over and show you how we tree out the tops.
Here you're on.
Okay, this one I've just finished spraying with Shoe Stretch. You have to hit the inside a little bit. Be aware on some of this lining material that if you use these top shapers and stretchers, they will turn the inside lining black, dark from Shoe Stretch. So when in doubt, when you're using these, use water. There are two types of methods of doing this. This is a top stretcher that as you turn it, grows larger, top and bottom. These are about $80 a piece. So if you don't want to spend that kind of money, there is another method. This is the way it's been done for many, many years, is with wooden shapers like this. These I've made. You can't buy these anymore, and it's strictly a 4x4 post that I've sawed in half, and then I took it on my finisher and I rounded it like this. You place these inside the boot and you take wedges like this and drive down between them to get the dimension you want. One is as good as another.
First one you put in upside down. First wedge
If you want to spread the bottom out, yes. If you want more room at the bottom, you've got to take and put a wedge in this way. And you have to have a varying degree of wedges. I have them from paper thin to as thick as these two. But yes, if you want to spread the bottom, you put a wedge in upside down. Otherwise, you would just spread the top. But this is a method for you. You can build these for very little cost. I don't varnish them. I don't use these anymore. I like the metal ones. They dry a little faster. There's more air circulation inside the boot. But this is a way for you to avoid about $170. This one's softened up some. If you are using these, generally they have a bump on the back of them. Put this to the counter. Look down your boot and make sure you've got it square so you don't have this twisted inside the boot. I start at the bottom. This slides in and out. To adjust the bottom screw, you shove it into the notch. To adjust the top one, you pull it back. Nothing terribly difficult about them or anything, other than the fact that they are expensive. But you're not going to wear them out, or at least not in your and my lifetime. At this time, I take a tape measure and I measure around the top like this, so that I end up with a circumference approximately 1.5 inches larger than his calf, unless he specifies something else. If he wants them big enough to put his pant legs in, you're going to have to go almost 3 inches bigger than his calf. Make sure when you choose your paper patterns that the measurement you have calf measurement-wise is going to be big enough. You can stretch probably 1 inch in the leather. If his calf measurement was 15 inches and you were using a 14-inch pattern, most of the time you can stretch that inch pretty easy. But in this case, I would go the 1.5 inches larger than the heel measurement. I mean the calf measurement. The bottom, I just run out snug. I don't stretch the bottoms at all at this time because I want a tight heel measurement, and this directly affects heel measurement. But you notice how that top is shaping up already. Whatever measurement I end up with on the top of this one, I make sure they match. There's nothing more irritating than to have a customer try the boot on and find out one fits one calf and the other one's 2 inches bigger or 2 inches smaller. And then I hang the boot. I don't let it set like that and dry. I hang it so that there's no weight on the vamp, because with these iron ones, they weigh quite a bit and they have a tendency to settle. So I hang them. I just drive them. I've got a couple nails driven in the wall and I just hang them like that.
You want to move that one boot out of the way? Let's see.
Again, measure them so that you get your calf measurement into it, and that it matches the other measurement. Make sure your boot is square. And then we take and hang them up. that. Let them dry, and then we put the pull tabs on. Boot's ready to go. We used shoe stretch on it to let it dry a little faster. Normally at this time, if you took it in the sink, made the top wet, you would also want to wash your silver marking tape off, your center line and so forth. It comes off with water, very easy. When you put shoe stretch on, you aren't going to want to rub the top because you will take color off. So keep that in mind when you use shoe stretch, that you don't want to rub the tops at that time. If you want to get your silver marking stuff off beforehand, take it in the sink and clean it then. But don't do it when you put the shoe stretch on. There, now it's starting to look like a boot. We'll put the pull tabs on now. Again, if you were making pull holes, you'd want this seam dressed up as nice as you could. If you've done a good job of constructing, they'll match and they'll look good anyway. Some bootmakers will take and sew a little piece of leather over the top just to smooth it out. We've taken our pulls, we skived off this edge and we skived off this edge so they'll lay nice and flat. Now I just use a contact cement and I start with the bottom edge here and I go up about an inch and an inch on this one. At this time I also put my label in my boot. I put them on the pulls. Go inside the boot and glue down on your side seam. Fold this down. Right here. About an inch to match on both sides. This will just take a second to dry. I do this on the post machine. You'll learn to appreciate what a scallop is for, because the deeper the scallop, the handier it even is. But you'll fold your boot down like this to get in here and sew these pulls. Works very well. If you've been in the repair industry working on your patching machine, you'll appreciate this trick when we get done with it. Okay, and you want to put them in about the same height. This isn't too critical because once they're folded over, nobody's going to know it but you anyway. Just place them in like that. Now I'm going to take and flatten the seam out a little bit with my pounding block here. Same on the other side. Now when I sew them, I will just take and I'll just start out here and I'll go down, sew across and back up. Makes for a very strong pull tab. I have never had any of mine come off. Fold the top down. Go across the bottom. And up the other side. This method of putting pull tabs on works very well also in the sense that you don't have your pole folded over and sewed exactly in the same place. You don't have all that bulk to fight with. You're sewing it one layer at a time, and it's a lot easier to sew. It's also a lot easier on your customer's leg. It doesn't rub as bad because you don't have that thickness again. Okay, we've got half of it done. Again, cut off all your threads. Make as neat and clean a job out of it as you can. Well, we've got half of them. Go back over to the bench. I've just got a piece of leather here I slide inside so I don't poke a hole all the way through the boot. I fold the pull tab over. And I've got a 1/4 inch oblong punch here that matches the 1/4 inch here. I lay it over like this and I just mentally mark where this punch has got to go. Lift up your pull tab. Turn it over and do the same. We've got our holes ready to slip this in. You merely bend this over and stick the fingers in the holes here. I'll pull it down to where it's a good snug fit, like that. That's what it looks like inside. There they are, right there. And what we'll do is we'll put a little glue under them now, so they'll lay down flat when we sew them. Do the other side. Works very well to fold your top and get it out of the way here. Don't put any more in than you need. You don't want it smeared all over the place. Turn it over and do the same here. You can also do it this way. Fold the top down, like so. Smear right in here. I'll let that dry a minute. You can do this before you shape the tops if you'd like. Sometimes it helps with softer leathers to put your pulls on first and then tree them up, because the pull tabs and everything get treated at the same time. Shape's a little easier. All we have left to do inside the boot from this point is I take a shoe rasp, and I go in and I rasp down the pegs inside, in here. I put a heel pad over the heel counter area, the heel seat area to cover up my brass tacks. That's all I really do to the inside. The rest of it is going to be cosmetic on the outside. I use shoe dye when I'm working with darker leathers. I will use an ink on this boot because this is a light colored leather. Ink doesn't have a tendency to bleed as bad. If you want to go up on the top here and say touch the top of this rand up with ink, it has a tendency to bleed into the heel counter, and then it'll act just like a sponge and soak up onto the heel counter as well. So for lighter weight leathers, I use a shoe ink because it has more base to it. It doesn't bleed as bad.
Lighter color, I think.
Lighter color lighter color leathers, yes. It's a brown top and brown seam here, so I'll do the bottom edging in brown. A couple things that you might want to do on the bottom is, again, I take a sprayer and I mist around the edge. That makes the nap of the leather stand up, and you can sand it down with the numb keg again and get a very smooth finish. You can take and put an oil on here and then brush it shortly after, and you'll get a very nice finish on the bottom. You can take polish and shine it if you want. I color in this area here with the same brown ink I'll be using on the edge. And after you're done, you can do any number of things. You can take a pattern marking wheel and mark off this area if you like. You can take a groover and groove a little edge in here. anything to dress up your shank area. All makes for a nicer looking boot. Okay, these are ready to lay down. Now I fold it over. I'm ready to sew them, and I basically will take and run a stitch up, go over and right back down, and then I just lift up the machine and I move to the other side and I go up, over and back down again. That way I've actually got 3 seams that have to break before this pull tab can let go. Very strong. Fold the top over like this. That gives you a clear shot at that one. This one I sew from the outside in. The top one I sewed from the inside out. I usually run a lock on my last stitch. And trim off all your thread again. Same with the inside. Now we'll do the other side. Fold the top down. At this time, I take a soldering iron, that's what I use, with a flat tip on it, and I will go in and I will singe off all remaining loose threads that I've got, sear off the end of things that look like they might ravel, and take care of that at this time so I don't forget it. It's one of those things, like I told you with the tack pulling. You're going to want to find a time for doing that and do it at the same place every time so that you become accustomed to doing it. It's a step you won't forget. From here we're going to go over and finish off the bottom, and you'll have a boot done and ready to go.